"You're too tight, but we'll force it," the billionaire triplet told their VIRGN wife. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. Emma Brooks stood in front of the elegant restaurant, her heart racing. She had promised her best friend Jenny that she'd go through with this blind date, even though the idea of it made her stomach churn. As she adjusted her second-hand dress and smoothed out the wrinkles in her worn shoes, she felt completely out of place. The world around her seemed so polished, so perfect, while she was just trying to survive, working as a waitress and dreaming of one day opening her own art studio. "You can do this, Emma," she whispered to herself, clutching her phone as she pushed open the door. The warm, dim lighting of the restaurant enveloped her, the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware creating a cozy atmosphere. But for Emma, it felt suffocating. Her eye scanned the room, looking for the table she had been assigned. Table 7. Table 7, she murmured under her breath, her hands trembling slightly. She finally spotted him, Kevin, or at least, who she thought was Kevin. A sharply dressed man sat alone at the back, absorbed in his phone, looking every bit the part of a successful professional. Taking a deep breath, Emma walked toward him, her heels clicking against the floor. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, her voice wavering slightly as she forced a smile. The man looked up, blinking in confusion, his eyes meeting hers for a brief moment before he spoke. Hi, Emma," he said, his tone a little uncertain. Emma misread his hesitation as shyness and slid into the seat across from him, her nerves on edge. "I know this is awkward, blind dates are weird, right?" she chuckled nervously, trying to fill the silence. "Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." The man, Kevin, or so she thought, seemed to relax a little. He smiled faintly but didn't say much. Emma's nervous chatter flowed effortlessly, talking about everything from her job at the diner to her dream of one day opening an art studio. "You're not what I expected," she said, her voice light, though a bit puzzled. "Jenny said you were reserved, but you're easy to talk to." Kevin finally spoke up, his voice warm but calm. "You're easy to talk to too," he said with a soft smile. Emma beamed at the compliment, feeling a little less self-conscious. But as she sipped her water, she felt her phone buzz in her bag. She glanced down at the screen, her stomach sinking as she read the message. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Wait," she said, looking up at the man across from her, her cheeks flushing. "You're not Kevin, are you?" The man's smile faltered slightly as guilt flickered in his eyes. "No, I'm not," he replied, his voice quiet. Emma's stomach churned. She had been sitting here, talking to a complete stranger, thinking he was Kevin. "Oh my God," she muttered, standing up abruptly, feeling her face burn with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." "Wait," the man said, standing as well, but Emma was already grabbing her coat and heading toward the door. She didn't want to look back. The thought of staying any longer, knowing how stupid she must have looked, made her want to run. But as she reached the door, she paused. The man hadn't followed her, but something about the way he looked at her, the way his expression softened when she ran off, stuck with her. She paused for a second, her hand on the door handle, but shook her head and hurried out. She couldn't face him again. Outside, the cool New York air hit her face, but her thoughts were still trapped inside that restaurant. Why had she reacted like that? Why hadn't she given him a chance to explain? Emma didn't know, but she was pretty sure she'd never see him again. And that was just fine. But for some reason, she couldn't shake the image of him from her mind. She'd made a fool of herself, and now she just had to move on. She didn't know it yet, but this would be the night that would change everything. Back inside the restaurant, Liam Parker stood at the counter, his thoughts swirling. He had intended to tell the woman sitting across from him that she had the wrong table, but something about her had kept him from speaking up. Her nervous energy, the way she tried so hard to fill the silence, it reminded him of a time in his life he had long since left behind. He wasn't used to this feeling, to being around someone so genuine and unpretentious. He watched her leave, his mind racing. There was something about her, and now he couldn't stop thinking about her. Would he ever see her again? And why did the idea of not seeing her bother him so much? As he sat back down, he couldn't shake the thought that perhaps he had made a mistake by not telling her the truth. The mistake that would lead him to find her again. The next day, Emma was sitting in her small, dimly lit apartment, scrolling through job listings on her phone. Her stomach growled in protest, reminding her that she hadn't had a proper meal since yesterday. She rubbed her eyes, tired from the long shift at the diner, and glanced at the pile of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. Another month of scraping by. She had hoped for a breakthrough, but with each passing day, it felt more and more like a distant dream. As her finger hovered over the screen, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenny, asking if she was okay after the awkward date the night before. Emma sighed, running a hand through her messy hair. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, keeping it short. She didn't want to relive the embarrassment. She couldn't stop thinking about the man she had mistaken for Kevin. She had practically bolted from the restaurant, and now, all she could do was wonder why the whole thing had stuck with her. Why couldn't she shake the feeling of wanting to see him again? Of course, that would never happen. He probably wouldn't even remember her. She had a way of making herself invisible to people, even if she didn't try. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number she didn't recognize. "Hi Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy you met at the restaurant last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe." Her heart skipped a beat. Liam? The man from the night before? Was this a joke? She stared at the message for a moment, her mind racing. Why would he want to see her again? Was he just being polite, or was he actually interested? It seemed impossible. After a few seconds of hesitation, she typed back, her fingers shaking slightly, "Coffee sounds nice." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. A few hours later, Emma found herself walking into a small cafe she had passed by countless times but never stepped into. It was tucked away from the busy streets, its windows fogged up from the warmth inside. She was early, but she couldn't help the nervous flutter in her chest. She scanned the room, looking for Liam. There he was, sitting at a corner table, dressed casually in jeans and a grey sweater, looking nothing like the polished businessman she had assumed him to be. His eyes met hers as she walked in, and he stood up with a smile that made her breath catch in her throat. "Hey, thanks for meeting me," he said, his voice warm. "No problem," she replied, trying to sound confident, but feeling anything but. She sat down across from him, the familiar tension creeping back into her body. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk to me again after the mix-up," Emma said, nervously picking up her coffee cup. "It was an accident," Liam said, his smile softening. "And I'm glad you agreed to meet. I've been thinking about our conversation." Emma felt her heart skip again. He had been thinking about her? He hadn't seemed interested the night before, but maybe he had been hiding it behind his polite manners. "Really?" she asked, surprised. "Yeah," Liam said, leaning forward slightly. "You're not like anyone I usually meet. You're real." Emma smiled, feeling a little less self-conscious. It was strange, sitting here with him, so casually. The man who had looked so polished and intimidating in the restaurant now seemed just like her, someone trying to get by, trying to make a connection. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Emma shared stories about her life, her struggles with making ends meet, and her dreams of opening an art studio. Liam listened intently, asking questions and laughing at her jokes. It felt easy, comfortable, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt seen. "You're really passionate about your art," Liam said as they wrapped up their conversation. You'll get there. I have no doubt. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She hadn't expected someone like him, someone so successful, to care so much about what she wanted to do with her life. Thanks, she said, feeling a little overwhelmed. That means a lot. As they stood up to leave, Liam handed her a small piece of paper with his number on it. I'll be around, Emma. Let me know if you ever want to talk more. She took the paper, smiling up at him. I will. Thanks, Liam. They parted ways, but Emma's mind was still racing. What had just happened? Could it really be this simple? Could a mix-up, a mistake, lead to something more? She didn't know, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like something good could happen to her. The next morning, as she walked to work, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam. What was it about him that made her feel so seen? He wasn't just a successful businessman, there was something else, something real. And for once, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change in ways she hadn't expected. The following week, Emma couldn't help but feel a growing sense of anticipation every time her phone buzzed. She kept checking it, hoping to see a message from Liam. It had been a few days since they'd met at the cafe, but she hadn't heard from him again. She wasn't sure why she was so eager to hear from him. Maybe it was because, for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had made a genuine connection with someone. It was a strange feeling, and she wasn't sure how to handle it. Life went on as usual, but her thoughts often wandered back to Liam. Her shift at the diner was busy, and she found herself taking orders and serving food without much thought. It was the same routine, day in and day out, but today something felt different. As she cleared a table, her phone buzzed. She quickly glanced at it, her heart skipping when she saw the familiar name on the screen. Hey Emma, hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about you. Would you like to grab coffee again sometime? The message was simple, but it was exactly what she had been hoping for. A smile spread across her face as she typed back a quick response. I'd love that. When are you free? Her heart was racing as she hit send, but it wasn't long before Liam replied with a time and place. They agreed to meet at the same cafe, the one where they had spent hours talking just a few days ago. That evening, Emma found herself walking back to the cafe, her steps light with excitement. She couldn't remember the last time she had looked forward to something this much. As she entered the cozy cafe, she immediately spotted Liam sitting at the same corner table, a warm smile on his face as he looked up at her. Hey, Emma, he greeted her, standing to pull out her chair. Glad you could make it. She smiled back, feeling that familiar nervous energy flood her system. I wouldn't miss it, she replied, sitting down. As they started chatting, Emma found herself once again drawn to Liam's ease and quiet confidence. There was something about him that made her feel at ease, even though she was usually so guarded. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and their struggles. Emma found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. She shared her passion for art, the way it had always been her escape, and her dream of one day opening a gallery of her own. I can see you doing that, Liam said, his eyes warm with genuine interest. You have the drive. I'm sure you'll make it happen. Emma felt a sense of warmth spread through her chest. His words meant more to her than she realized. She had never really believed in herself, always feeling like she was just one step away from failure. But hearing Liam's belief in her made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do it. Thanks, Liam, she said softly. That means a lot to me. As the conversation continued, Emma began to realize that she was feeling something more than just gratitude for Liam. She wasn't sure when it had started, but she felt a deep connection with him, one that went beyond the initial mix-up at the restaurant. There was something between them, something that made her heart beat a little faster every time he smiled at her or looked at her with that soft gaze. As they finished their coffee, Liam leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving hers. I've been meaning to ask you something, he said, his voice quieter now. Would you be open to going out with me? Not just for coffee, but on a real date. Emma's heart skipped a beat. A real date? She hadn't expected this. She had been so caught up in the idea of their connection that she hadn't even considered the possibility of him feeling the same way. She felt her cheeks flush as she looked down, unsure of how to respond. But then she looked up into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw something in him that mirrored her own feelings. "I'd like that," she said softly, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling up inside her. Liam's smile widened, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, sitting in that small cafe, sharing something real. As they stood up to leave, Liam took a step closer to her. "I'll pick you up tomorrow night," he said, his voice warm. "We'll make it a night to remember." Emma nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. "I'm looking forward to it." As she walked out of the cafe, she couldn't stop the thoughts racing through her mind. She had no idea what was happening between them, but one thing was certain, this was the start of something new. Something that could change everything. The following night, Emma stood in front of her modest mirror, adjusting her dress for what felt like the 100th time. She had spent the entire day thinking about the date with Liam, wondering what she should wear, how she should act, and whether or not she was making a mistake. But deep down, she knew this felt different. Liam felt different. She took a deep breath, smoothing down the fabric of her simple but elegant dress, and glanced at the clock. It was almost time. There was a soft knock on the door, and her heart skipped a beat. She opened it to find Liam standing there, looking effortlessly handsome in a well-tailored suit, his dark hair slightly messy as if he hadn't spent too much time trying to perfect it. "Wow, you look amazing," he said with a warm smile, his eyes lingering on her for just a moment too long. Emma blushed, feeling a rush of warmth spread through her. "Thank you," she replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "You look pretty great yourself." Liam chuckled softly, offering her his arm. "Shall we?" he asked, his tone light but genuine. As they stepped out of her apartment building, Emma couldn't help but feel a nervous excitement in her chest. The night air was cool, and she could smell the faint scent of rain in the air. Liam led her to his car, a sleek black sedan that contrasted with her humble surroundings. "You're not used to this, are you?" he asked, his eyes flicking to her as he opened the car door for her. "Not at all," she admitted with a small laugh as she slid into the passenger seat. "But it feels kind of nice." Liam smiled, his gaze softening. "I'm glad. I want you to feel comfortable, Emma." As the car pulled away, they fell into an easy conversation, the city lights blurring past them as they talked about everything and nothing. For once, Emma didn't feel like she had to watch what she said or how she said it. With Liam, she could just be herself. They arrived at a beautiful restaurant by the water, its warm, golden lights reflecting off the surface of the lake. Liam took her hand as they entered, and Emma couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest. This wasn't a typical date for her. There were no cheap diners or crowded bars. This was something else entirely. As they were seated, Liam's hand brushed against hers, and Emma felt her heart race. They spoke about their careers, their dreams, and their lives. It was the kind of conversation that felt deep, like they were unraveling pieces of themselves they had kept hidden from the world. "You know," Liam said, his voice quiet and thoughtful, "I've never met anyone like you. You're real, Emma. Not like the women I'm used to meeting." Emma felt a little knot form in her stomach, a mix of nervousness and something else she couldn't quite put her finger on. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her voice a little quieter than she intended. Liam leaned in slightly, his gaze steady and sincere. "You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not pretending to be something you're not. I can tell you're genuine, and that's rare." Emma's heart fluttered in her chest. She had never thought of herself as particularly special, but hearing Liam say that made her feel like maybe she was, just a little. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "That means a lot to me." They spent the rest of the evening enjoying their meal and talking about everything from their childhoods to their favorite books. As the night wore on, Emma found herself more and more drawn to Liam, not just because of his wealth or his charm, but because of the way he made her feel, like she was seen, like she mattered. After dinner, Liam suggested they take a walk by the water. "I like this place," Emma said, her voice quiet as she looked out over the lake. "It's peaceful." Liam nodded, his eyes following hers. "It's nice, isn't it? Sometimes I forget how important it is to just slow down." They walked in comfortable silence for a few moments before Liam stopped and turned to face her. "Emma, I know this is only our second date, but I have to be honest with you," he said, his voice serious now. "I've never felt this way about anyone before. I want to get to know you, more than just a casual thing." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this. She had been so caught up in the fun of their time together that she hadn't even thought about what it could mean for the future. "Liam, I don't know what to say." He smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You don't have to say anything yet. I just wanted you to know how I feel." Emma looked up at him, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. This wasn't just a fling, or a casual date. She could see that now. There was something real between them. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. The following week, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that things were changing. After her date with Liam, everything felt different, lighter, even. She found herself waking up early for the first time in a long while, eager to start her day. The routine at the diner didn't seem so exhausting anymore, the tips were better, her co-workers were more pleasant, and she even found herself laughing more. She couldn't help but think that Liam had something to do with it. He'd reached out to her every day since their date, and the more they talked, the more Emma realized how much she looked forward to hearing from him. They had shared so many conversations, and each one left her feeling more and more connected to him. It wasn't just the charm or the wealth, it was the way he made her feel important, like she mattered in a world that often overlooked people like her. That afternoon, she was wiping down the counter when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey Emma, I was thinking about our next date. How about dinner at my place tomorrow night?" The message felt like a dream. Liam was inviting her to his home. Her heart raced as she stared at the text. She wasn't sure why this felt like such a big deal. Maybe it was because it meant they were moving forward, that he wanted something real. Or maybe it was because his home was a world she had never known, a world so different from hers. Still, she couldn't deny the excitement that bubbled up inside her. "I'd love to," she texted back. She quickly found herself pacing the small apartment, thinking about what to wear, how to act. Would she be too out of place? Would he expect her to be someone she wasn't? As much as she tried to calm her nerves, the anxiety wouldn't go away. She stood in front of the mirror, trying on different outfits, until she finally settled on something simple but elegant, a dress she had bought on sale a few months ago. She glanced at the clock, realizing it was time to go. When she arrived at Liam's place, she couldn't help but feel a little awestruck. His penthouse was everything she had imagined and more, sleek, modern, and absolutely stunning. Liam greeted her at the door with a warm smile, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice soft but sincere. Emma felt her cheeks warm at the compliment, but she managed a smile. "Thanks, you're looking pretty sharp yourself." Liam laughed, leading her inside. The apartment was just as immaculate as she had imagined, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. The space was filled with expensive furniture, but it didn't feel cold or uninviting. The kitchen smelled amazing, and Emma could tell Liam had gone all out for their dinner. As they sat down to eat, Emma couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed by the whole experience. This was nothing like her usual dinners, nothing like the pizza and takeout she had grown used to. Liam, however, seemed at ease. He was genuinely interested in everything she had to say, from her childhood dreams to the struggles she had faced as an adult. "You're different from the people I usually meet," Liam said, his eyes locked on hers. "You have this warmth about you. It's rare, and it's refreshing." Emma blinked, feeling a flutter in her chest at his words. She had never thought of herself as particularly warm or special. But hearing him say that made her feel like maybe she was. Thank you, she said quietly, unsure of what else to say. She had never been great at accepting compliments, especially not from someone like him. But Liam made it feel easy, like she deserved them. As the evening wore on, the two of them talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories, laughing at the small things, and simply enjoying each other's company. It was one of the most relaxed nights Emma had ever had. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt so comfortable with someone. So, Emma, Liam said, his voice softer now, I've been meaning to ask you something. What's next for you? What do you want out of life? Emma looked up, her gaze meeting his. She hadn't expected the question. She had been so focused on getting by, on surviving, that she hadn't really thought about what came after. She thought for a moment, her hands resting on the table in front of her. I want to open my own art studio, she said finally, her voice steady. I want to show the world what I can do. But it's been hard. I don't know if it's even possible. Liam leaned forward, his eyes fixed on her. I think it's possible, he said with a quiet confidence. I really do. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. For the first time, she felt like someone believed in her, someone with the power to make a difference. She smiled, her worry slowly fading away. Maybe Liam wasn't just a dream. Maybe this was the beginning of something real. As the night came to an end, Liam walked her to the door. Thank you for tonight, Emma said, her voice soft but genuine. It was perfect. Liam smiled, his expression full of warmth. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon. As she walked out of his apartment, Emma couldn't help but feel like she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. A chapter she never thought possible. She wasn't sure where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next few weeks passed in a blur of excitement and new beginnings. Emma found herself more and more drawn to Liam, and their connection only deepened. They spent weekends exploring the city together, enjoying quiet dinners at local spots, and talking late into the night about their hopes, fears, and dreams. Liam was nothing like the men Emma had known before. He wasn't just a rich CEO who looked at her as another conquest or a casual fling. He was thoughtful, kind, and most importantly, he made her feel like she was enough just as she was. For the first time, Emma felt like she was more than her circumstances, more than the waitress struggling to make ends meet. She was someone worth investing in, someone worthy of love and success. Liam had shown her that. But even as things were going so well, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something important she hadn't told him yet. Her dream of opening an art studio, her long-held passion for painting, she hadn't shared that part of herself with him yet. It wasn't that she didn't trust him, it was just that she was afraid. Afraid of what he might think, afraid that he might see her differently if he knew the full extent of her ambitions. Emma had always kept that side of herself hidden, a piece of her soul locked away because, in the past, sharing it had only led to disappointment. As she sat in her small apartment one evening, staring at her paintbrush and the canvas that had been sitting unfinished for days, she knew it was time to tell Liam the truth. It had been a while since they had talked about her dream, and with each passing day, she felt it weighing more heavily on her. She couldn't keep pretending like it wasn't a huge part of her life. It was who she was. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and sent him a message. Can we talk tonight? There's something I need to tell you. Liam replied almost immediately. Of course, whenever you're ready. I'll be over in an hour. Emma's heart raced as she put down her phone. What was she so afraid of? Liam had shown her nothing but kindness and support, yet there she was, trembling at the thought of being open with him. She knew this conversation was inevitable. She couldn't keep hiding the truth. An hour later, Liam arrived at her apartment, his usual warm smile greeting her as he walked through the door. Hey, he said, his voice gentle. What's going on? You seem a little nervous. Emma smiled, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. I am, actually, she admitted. There's something I've been holding back, and I think it's time to tell you. Liam raised an eyebrow, his expression curious but reassuring. You can tell me anything, Emma. She took a deep breath and led him to the small living room. I know I've mentioned wanting to open an art studio before, she began, sitting down on the couch. But there's more to it. It's been my dream for as long as I can remember, and I've been working towards it quietly for years. But I've never really talked about it with anyone, not fully. I guess I was afraid. Liam sat beside her, his presence comforting, his hand gently resting on hers. Afraid of what? He asked softly. Emma met his gaze, her voice steady now. Afraid that no one would take me seriously, that people would think I'm just some girl with big dreams and no way to make them happen. I've never had the resources or the support to really pursue it, and I've been stuck working as a waitress to make ends meet. I've always kept it to myself because I didn't want to be judged, or worse, disappointed when it didn't happen. She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. But I can't ignore it anymore. I can't ignore the fact that this is who I am, and I need to follow this dream, no matter what. Liam was quiet for a moment, his fingers gently brushing hers as he processed her words. Then, he looked at her with a soft smile, his eyes filled with something Emma couldn't quite place. I don't think you're just some girl with big dreams, he said, his voice low and sincere. I think you're someone who's capable of achieving anything she sets her mind to. And I'm here for that. I'm here to support you. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had expected him to be shocked, or maybe even distant, but instead, he was offering her exactly what she needed, understanding and support. You mean that? She asked, her voice cracking slightly. Liam nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Of course. I've seen how passionate you are about it, and I believe in you, Emma. I believe in your art, and I believe in you. Emma's heart soared as she squeezed his hand, her fears melting away in that moment. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone in this. She didn't have to hide her dreams anymore. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. That means everything to me. Liam smiled, his eyes soft and full of affection. Anything for you, Emma. Let's make this happen together. The weight that had been hanging over Emma for so long finally lifted. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time, she felt like she wasn't facing them alone. She had Liam by her side, and with his support, she could finally start pursuing her dream with the confidence she had always lacked. As they sat together in the quiet of her apartment, Emma realized that this was just the beginning, not just of her dream, but of something much bigger, something that felt real and full of promise. Over the next few months, Emma's life began to shift in ways she never expected. With Liam's support, she found the courage to take steps toward her dream. He helped her find a small space to rent for her art studio, and while it wasn't much, just a tiny room above a local cafe, it was hers. For the first time in years, Emma felt like she was truly building something. The hours she spent there, painting and sketching, were some of the happiest she'd ever known. But despite the progress, doubt still crept in. Emma hadn't told anyone outside of Liam about her plans. She was afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of what others might think. The thought of her friends and family seeing her studio and wondering why she was still working as a waitress haunted her. What if they thought she was chasing an impossible dream? As the weeks went on, Emma's connection with Liam grew even stronger. They were together more and more, and she found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone else. Liam was patient, understanding, and always supportive. He never pushed her for more than she was ready to give, and yet, she felt like she was finally starting to trust him completely. One evening, after a long day of painting, Emma met Liam at his office for dinner. The office had become a second home to her, a place where they could both relax after a busy day. As they sat across from each other, Liam reached across the table and took her hand. I've been thinking a lot about you, about us, he said, his voice steady. We've been through a lot together, and I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you, no matter what. Emma's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the first time he had said something like this, but hearing it now, after everything they had been through, made her realize just how much he meant to her. She had always been scared to depend on anyone, always afraid that people would leave, but Liam's words were different. He wasn't just saying them out of politeness or obligation, he meant them. "I'm not going anywhere either," she replied softly, her voice full of sincerity. "You've helped me more than you know. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." Liam smiled, squeezing her hand. "You've done it, Emma. You've built this. I'm just here to help you along the way." As they finished their meal, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. She had spent so many years doubting herself, questioning if her dreams were even possible. But with Liam by her side, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. That night, after Liam dropped her off at her apartment, Emma sat down at her desk, staring at the blank canvas before her. She had been working on a new painting for weeks, but every time she picked up her brush, something held her back. But now, with Liam's words echoing in her mind, she felt a shift. She wasn't just painting for herself anymore. She was painting for the future she had started to build, a future that was full of possibilities, full of hope. With a deep breath, she picked up her brush and began to paint. The strokes were tentative at first, but as she moved the brush across the canvas, something began to click. The painting came to life, vibrant and full of emotion, just like the path she was walking now. When she finished, Emma stepped back and smiled. It wasn't just a painting, it was a symbol of everything she had overcome, everything she had worked for. She wasn't just dreaming anymore, she was making it happen. The next day, Emma stood in front of her new art studio, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The space was small, but it was hers, and it was real. As she opened the door and stepped inside, she felt a rush of gratitude. She had done this. It hadn't been easy, and there were still obstacles ahead, but she had come so far. Liam was right. She had built this. She had made her dream come true. Emma knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but she was ready. She was ready to face whatever challenges came her way. With Liam by her side and her own determination driving her forward, she felt invincible. She wasn't just the waitress who dreamed of opening an art studio anymore, she was the artist who had done it, who was living her dream, one stroke at a time. Months passed, and Emma's life continued to unfold in ways she had never dreamed possible. With each passing day, her art studio became more than just a place to create, it became a sanctuary, a reflection of the person she was becoming. The fear and doubt that had once held her back slowly faded into the background, replaced by a growing confidence she had never known. The small space, though modest, felt like her own corner of the world, where she could finally breathe and pursue her dreams on her own terms. Liam, as always, was there by her side, not just as her boyfriend, but as her biggest supporter. He came to visit her studio every chance he got, bringing her coffee and a smile, and even helping her set up for the small exhibition she started hosting. He never once made her feel like she was asking too much, even though he was often swamped with his own busy schedule. One evening, after a long day of painting, Emma was cleaning up the studio when Liam walked in, a familiar warmth in his smile. "Hey, you," he said, walking toward her with a soft laugh. "I was thinking about you." Emma smiled, wiping her hands on a rag. "You always think about me." Liam chuckled, taking her hands in his. "That's because you're hard to forget," he said, his voice low, sincere. "I've been thinking about how much you've grown, about everything you've done. You've turned your dream into reality." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You helped me believe I could." Liam shook his head, his expression tender. "No, you believed all along. I just helped you see it." Emma stepped closer, looking up at him with a smile. "Thank you, Liam. For everything." He kissed her forehead softly, holding her close. "I'll always be here, Emma. No matter what happens." Emma closed her eyes, letting the moment sink in. She didn't know what the future held, but with Liam by her side, she felt like she could face anything. Over the next few weeks, things continued to fall into place. The art studio flourished. people started to take notice of her work, and her small exhibitions grew into something bigger. She even received a few commissions, the dream she had worked so hard for slowly becoming a reality. But with that success came new challenges that tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated. As her art gained more attention, the pressure to keep up with the demand grew. Her nights became longer, and the time she spent with Liam became less frequent. Despite the growing success, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She found herself exhausted, running on fumes, constantly trying to balance her dream with the reality of maintaining her business. And then, one night, it happened. Emma was sitting in her studio, working late, when she got a call from Liam. "Emma," he said, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. "We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" she asked, standing up from her chair. "I don't know," Liam replied. "I just feel like we're drifting apart." Emma's heart tightened. "I don't want that," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm just overwhelmed. There's so much happening right now, and I feel like I'm losing control." Liam paused on the other end of the line, his voice filled with concern. "I get it, Emma. I know you're busy, but I want to be here for you. I don't want you to go through this alone." Emma sat down, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know how to balance everything," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm afraid I'm losing myself in all of this, losing the person I was before I started all of this. And I don't want to lose you too." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Emma waited, her breath caught in her chest. Finally, Liam spoke. "You're not losing me, Emma. We'll figure this out together, okay? You don't have to carry this weight alone." His words brought a wave of relief, but it also made Emma realize how much she had been trying to handle on her own. For the first time, she understood that it was okay to lean on someone else, to allow herself to be supported. The following days were a turning point. Emma took a step back from the constant hustle of her art studio. She allowed herself time to breathe, to focus on the things that really mattered, her health, her relationship with Liam, and her passion for painting. She started to find a better balance between work and life, something she had never truly known before. And through it all, Liam was there, by her side, reminding her that she wasn't alone. It wasn't easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but Emma knew that with Liam, she could navigate whatever came her way. The path to her dream wasn't a straight line, but it was hers to walk. With each step, she was finding her way back to herself, and Liam was there, walking with her every step of the way. As the months went by, Emma's art studio became more than just a business, it became a symbol of everything she had fought for. It wasn't easy, but with each passing day, Emma felt herself growing stronger, more confident, and more connected to the world around her. The balance she had struggled to find between her art and her personal life was slowly starting to come together. She was no longer just the waitress with big dreams, she was the artist who had created something real, something that mattered. Liam, as always, was right by her side. They had faced their struggles, their doubts, and their fears, but they had never given up on each other. Through the highs and the lows, they had built a bond that was unshakable. One evening, as Emma was preparing for another exhibition, Liam showed up at the studio with a smile on his face and something hidden behind his back. "I've got a surprise for you," he said, his voice playful as he approached her. Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "What is it?" she asked, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. Liam pulled out a small velvet box and knelt down in front of her, a look of sincerity in his eyes. "Emma, you show me what it means to truly live for your dreams, to never give up, and to fight for what matters most. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, supporting you, loving you, and building something beautiful together. Will you marry me?" Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as she looked down at Liam. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the ring in his hand. She had never imagined this moment, never thought she'd find someone who truly understood her, who saw her for who she really was. But here he was, on one knee, asking her to spend forever with him. She couldn't help the tears that welled up in her eyes. Yes, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, I will marry you. Liam smiled, his face lighting up. As he slid the ring onto her finger, Emma wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a tight embrace. I love you, she murmured, holding him close. I love you too, he whispered back, his voice full of warmth and love. In that moment, Emma realized that everything she had worked for, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, had led her to this point. She had found her dream, not just in the studio, but in Liam. Together, they had created something beautiful, something that was real. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning and continued success for Emma's studio. They worked together to make their dream a reality, each day bringing them closer to the life they had always wanted. The support they shared wasn't just in their love for each other, but in their shared vision of what they could build together. And as Emma stood in front of her studio one evening, looking at the space that had become a testament to her hard work, she felt a deep sense of pride. She had done it. She had built a life she was proud of, a life that was full of love, passion, and purpose. And with Liam by her side, she knew the journey was just beginning. They stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the city that had once felt so overwhelming to Emma but now felt like home. We've come a long way, haven't we? Liam said, his voice full of awe as he looked at the studio. Emma smiled, her heart full. Yes, we have. And I wouldn't change a thing. As they shared a quiet moment, Emma realized that this was exactly where she was meant to be. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with Liam, she knew they could face anything. Together, they had created something beautiful, and together, they would continue to build their future, one step at a time.